Unfortunately for the Denver Nuggets, once Michael Porter Jr. went out with a season-ending injury within the first 2 weeks of the season, the 2021-22 season became a write-off. Yet they still managed to be a top 6 seed, led by the MVP campaign from Nikola Jokic. So with MPJ and Jamal Murray presumptively back healthy next season, what's next for the Denver Nuggets? Nikola Jokic continues to be one of the best players in the NBA, now winning back-to-back MVP awards. His impact on this team is beyond words, as this team without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. on paper should not be a top 6 seed with as good of a record as they were last year in what is a good Western Conference. But they were, largely in part due to the scoring and playmaking of Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon had a good first full season in Denver, picking up some more of the offensive slack thanks to the injuries, and honestly was very efficient, shooting well over his career high from the field. His offensive role will likely shrink and his defensive role increase with the return of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., but will still have a very important part in the Nuggets' success moving forward. Will Barton picked up his scoring production as well last season without sacrificing his efficiency. Unfortunately, he continues to not be a great defender, and that could be part of the reason he gets involved in trade talks this offseason. Monte Morris picked up the starting point guard role with the injury of Jamal Murray, and although he may not have met the lofty expectations some people had set for him, he still had a fairly productive season. Certainly, he will continue to be one of the best backup point guards in the league next season. As far as youngsters go, Bones Hyland had a great rookie season, finishing on the all-rookie second team, and provided some great bench scoring for this Nuggets roster. And Zeke Nagy is still not a well-known player to many NBA fans, but he has some upside and could become a more important rotational piece next season. He is a solid rebounder who provides some fairly good three-point shooting. And of course, this season that was successful relative to all of the injuries that they had was without Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, who should both be back for the beginning of next season. So with all of these things in mind, what can we expect in the Denver Nuggets 2022 offseason? The 2022 offseason for Denver starts with the Supermax contract extension of Nikola Jokic. Jokic only has 1 year left on his current contract, but all reports indicate that Jokic will be returning to the Nuggets and will agree to a Supermax extension once he becomes eligible this offseason. This will have Jokic tied up to the Nuggets for the next 6 seasons, alongside Jamal Murray for 3, Michael Porter Jr. for 5, and Aaron Gordon for 3, allowing the Nuggets to have, at the bare minimum, a 3-year window to push for a title. After the inevitable Jokic extension, what follows? Well, the Nuggets do not have any significant free agents this summer, but will have some decisions to make regarding their bench. Guards Facundo Campazzo, Bryn Forbes, and Austin Rivers will all enter free agency, with no indication either way as to whether they will be brought back or not. Campazzo is a fun player with good passing, but between his lack of size to be competent defensively alongside being a very inefficient shooter, I do not expect him to return, with Jamal Murray, Monte Morris, and Bones Hyland all being in the point guard rotation for the Nuggets. As far as Bryn Forbes and Austin Rivers, well, the Nuggets will likely have to decide which one of the two they would like to bring back as their 5th rotational guard, with Austin Rivers being the better defender, but Bryn Forbes being the much better spacer and three-point shooter. I would expect Bryn Forbes to have significantly more interest across the league than Austin Rivers, which could play a part in Bryn Forbes being the one that ends up leaving. Rivers is the player I find most likely to come back, as GM Calvin Booth has hinted towards interest in re-signing him, and given Denver are much better on offense than they are on defense, this is likely the best decision for the Nuggets. The other free agent of note for the Nuggets is Demarcus Cousins, who played some valuable minutes for Denver over the course of last season, is still a good rebounder and a solid scorer, but it is clear Cousins at this point in time in his career is simply not a good defender, and I would like the Nuggets to focus on having a good defensive center as they look to make some more improvements to their defense. Players I'd prefer them to show interest in via free agency are Robin Lopez, Hassan Whiteside, Isaiah Hartenstein, assuming he is not too much money, or even Bismack Biyombo, who would just improve the defense and rim protection of the Nuggets' second unit. No backup big for the Nuggets will have to play heavy minutes with Jokic being ahead of them, but someone who can give them 10 to 15 good minutes of rebounding and good defense, especially throughout the regular season, is going to be very important. Jeff Green is a player option for next season as well, and with the Nuggets needing valuable wing depth, the hope is that he will opt into that contract, but given he is at age 36, I would predict he will opt in. So outside of free agency, could the Nuggets make some moves? Well, I don't expect the Nuggets to make any significant trades this summer, but there is one avenue they could explore. The Nuggets do need some more defensive help, so if a good 3-and-D wing becomes available this offseason, do not be shocked if the Nuggets look to make a trade. This could involve Zeke Nagy and a pick, or it could involve Will Barton, who I would not be shocked to see moved in a trade with only 1 year left on his contract. Expect the Nuggets to be very interested in any trade around a 3-and-D wing this summer. But honestly, I don't expect many big changes for this roster. They have their core locked up, and they haven't had a healthy playoff run since the bubble. So I would be shocked to see them blow this group up before getting a true shot. It's a boring offseason, not overly exciting, and not an overly exciting one to talk about and make predictions about, but it's probably the right way to go about it, unless an offer comes along that is simply too good to be true to acquire more talent. My expectations for the Nuggets heading into next season are fully dependent on their availability and health. If Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are both healthy and play at the high level we have learned to expect from them, then they could be one of the best teams in the Western Conference. However, there is no guarantee that that is the case. Jamal Murray, coming off a significant lower body injury, will need some time to get back to game shape, and there is no guarantee his athleticism will remain at exactly the same level it was before his injury. However, the bigger concern is that of Michael Porter Jr., who continues to struggle with back injuries that have dated back to his pre-NBA career. And backs are one of the most difficult injuries to overcome and get back to 100%, hence why he has continued to have back injuries. Are Denver still a good team without a healthy Michael Porter Jr.? Yes, certainly. They were a 6 seed without him and Jamal Murray. But the Nuggets will struggle to have the necessary offensive firepower if Michael Porter Jr. cannot stay on the floor, something that has to be a serious consideration for the Nuggets next season. Irregardless of injuries, the Nuggets defense is something to consider when evaluating their upside. The Nuggets defense has improved from where it was a couple of years ago, but it still is far from a great defense, something that in the playoffs could certainly cause some problems. Jokic is a better defender now than he was a couple of years ago, which certainly helps, but Michael Porter Jr. still has not shown to be a great defender, and there is no elite defenders or elite team defense present here. Something that is quite typical and often very necessary to have playoff success unless you have an absolutely ridiculous offense. And although the Nuggets offense is elite, I don't think it's good enough to make up for their defensive weaknesses. So if the Nuggets stay healthy, they will likely be one of the best regular season teams in the NBA. But as the roster currently stands, they lack the defensive talent to be true NBA title contenders. That's my thoughts on the Denver Nuggets heading into the offseason. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more NBA offseason content. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.